My name is Dakota Krout. Hi, yes. I'm very excited. Now, one of the things that I love to do is, if you guys have questions, I don't want you to wait till the end. I want you to just pop up and ask me a question, okay? Because I want it to be fresh, not just for you, but for everyone else, okay? So please do make that happen. All right, so the topic today that I'm going to be going through is relational marketing through actionable gamification. And we'll get into what that actually means in a moment, but just know that it's a really cool title. All right, yeah, okay. So tiny slide about me. All right, so I'm Dakota Krout, obviously. I have been Amazon and Audible top 5 overall. I've been the listener choice for September of 2017. I'm the owner and president of Mountaindale Press. I'm a multi-7-figure earning author. I've been featured in Forbes, New York Times, the Associated Press, Time Magazine, Person of the Year 2006. I've also been the cover story for the Indie Author magazine, which actually means more to me than the other ones, which is why it's on its own line. Okay, so because that's something that matters in my community, right? So, and that's something that this is all about, is what matters in your community, what matters to your community. These are the sales tactics, or the marketing tactics that we actively use, okay? They are not, I'm not here to sell you anything. I have nothing for sale, right? I'm not here to try and find new authors to publish. We're not taking anyone on, right? So all of this is me trying to help gear you up for your own personal success. So take away what you will, okay? All right, so relational marketing, right? So relational marketing is optimizing your interactions to achieve both motivation and engagement. So in brief, that's make a good experience for people and they'll love you forever, okay? I heard a wonderful, wonderful quote the other day, or yesterday actually, and so I actually changed my slides to have this. It says, relationships are not a problem to be solved. They are a tension to be managed. And if you go into this, meeting with your fans, meeting with other authors, all this other stuff, and you think of it like that, right? You're not trying to solve a problem. You're trying to have a long-term commitment to success or to your brand or to whatever it is that is going to make you successful, right? So if you do that, you're going to walk away much happier at the end of the day. Okay. So how do we actually market relationally for long-term success, right? So this is called human-focused motivations, right? So specifically not data-driven design. So it's not about clicks, it's not about likes, it's not about impressions, it's about doing what is going to influence your audience in a way that makes them want to be a part of what you're doing, right? So there are 3 key motivations that I really focus on, really focus on, and I try to make this a part of everything that I do for my fans, right? The first one is empowerment, right? So, I'm sorry, let's talk about the graphic for a second first. So this is the actual, it's called the octalysis from the book Actionable Gamification by Yu-Kai Chou, right? So this is kind of a chart that shows what kind of motivators get people to do things, right? What literally motivates every human on the planet to do whatever it is that they are doing. And you'll see 2 lines on that, and one's going down the center, and that's left brain, right brain stuff, right? It's, even in the book, he's like, this is kind of like pseudoscience, right? But it's just kind of how we describe it. But the black line is the important one. So the stuff above the black line is called white hat motivators. White hat motivators are things that you can do that leave the people that you use the motivators on. It leaves them happier at the end of the day. It leaves them wanting to come back and do more and be a part of something that you are doing. Black hat motivators, which we've all found, and I can say that Las Vegas is a notorious black hat motivator, right? Are the things that when you realize how bad they are for you, for your mentality, for your, you wake up feeling worse off almost all of the time when you do it. Those are called the black hat motivators, okay? So that's scarcity, however you say that. Avoidance, unpredictability, right? So if you go up to a slot machine and you only win 1 time out of 1,000 spins, but so excited for that one time, right? That's a black hat motivator, because it's a huge rush at that moment that then motivates you to try again, even knowing that your odds are so slim that it doesn't even matter, right? So, a good example of this is Zynga games, if anyone's ever played some of those, right? How many of you have played them, been really excited for like 2 weeks, and then been like, oh my gosh, how much time am I wasting? What is this doing to me? Like I haven't done my chores, I haven't like written a word in 3 days, and then you immediately uninstall it, right? Those are the sort of things you want to avoid when you are interacting with your fans and with your audience. So the things that we're going to talk about today are these white hat motivators and what we can do to boost them and to use them effectively in actionable ways. So first off, empowerment, right? Empowerment is one of the biggest things for me, and it's going to be I'm going to show you in a few minutes. This is how I go through my hiring process. Okay, and I have a row of people over here who can attest to the way that I do this, right? So empowerment is getting your fans engaged in the creative process. This could be anything from asking them, what should I name the character? To what color should their hair be? To someone who is insane like me, who goes and publicly writes on Discord, so anyone who wants to come in and see me write and see what I'm writing can do it and critique me as I'm actively writing, right? So that's one of the ways that I do audience building, is I empower them, and they show me, like, hey, you made a mistake here, here's a better way of doing this. And that's one way I can empower my audience to be a part of my creative process, which is a huge thing for them, which is gives them, number 2, ownership, right? So if I am, as a person who is a public figure, going out there and responding positively to the negative things that they can say sometimes, and I'm saying, hey man, you're right, like, I'll own that, absolutely, like, that was a mistake, or that was something that I didn't use in the best way that I could have, and then I say thank you for that, and then I acknowledge them, or especially if I do that publicly, right? And that's going to give them a huge sense of ownership. And I have taken people who have actively disliked my work and me as a person and told me that I smell bad, even though they've never met me in person. And I've taken them and turned them into some of my biggest fans. I have one really great example of this, where I had a person who had never written a fictional word in their life reached out to me and sent me a 13-page document on how my system in my book was broken and how it needed to be fixed, right? So now, so what I did right then is I got him on the phone and I said, hey, you're hired, right? And now he's a high 6-figure earning author in my company, right? So that's one of those things that you can do. When people tell you something, listen. Too easy, right? Okay. So motivation. So third motivation is social influence, right? So this is a huge one. Remember how I said, I'll take that stuff and I will do it publicly, I'll own it publicly, I will give them praise publicly. That is giving people social influence. That is actively taking them from where they are amongst all of your other fans and saying, hey, you, amongst all these people who are doing this stuff, have really done something for me, and I want to give you praise and accolades for that, right? That can do everything from giving them like the chosen one mentality to making them into a super fan who just goes out there and will actively tell people about your work without you having to pay them a dime, right? So let's get on to this here. And remember, if you have any questions on what I'm talking about, because this is a bit of a dense subject, and it can be, there's 2 microphones, one right here, one right over there. Feel free to just walk up, I'll call on you right away. Okay. Oh, sorry, too far. Right, so social influence. So it's giving your fans a chance to rise above, right? So that is it's a keyword there, a chance to rise above. Okay, so to give them influence over your other fans, at least in their mind, right? So that is a huge motivator for many, many people. All right, so let's talk about achieving mastery, which, if you remember the octalysis, was one of those white hat motivators. So let's talk on social media. I don't like being on social media. I think that it gives people a separation where it frees them to say things that they could never say in public, right? They could never say in person, right? And it gives them leeway to do things that, sometimes I just don't agree with. Okay, so what does that mean for me as someone who needs to be on social media? That means I need to start very small. I need to be focused on what I'm doing, and I need to really achieve mastery in what I am doing. This is marketing. It is not advertising. I am not putting any money into this. I am not doing anything except putting my time and my effort into it. If I am putting money into it, it is because I've hired someone to do those things for me, right? That is how I would put money into marketing. That's it, right? Social media, Facebook gets none of my money, right? Because to me, advertising on Facebook is like throwing coins up in the dark and hoping they stack on the table next to me when I'm done. Oh, yeah, it worked. No, almost never, for me. Some of you might have found great success, but you've probably achieved mastery in advertising on Facebook that I have not, and that gives you probably a lot of social influence, and if you were talking to me about it, I'd be really interested in what you had to say, right? Isn't that a cool thing? Yeah, it's super cool, right? You're like, yeah, this is something to figure out. He doesn't know what he's talking about. That's great. I'll tell him. Yeah, please do. I have a notebook, right? So mastery makes you feel good, right? It makes you feel powerful. It gives you influence over other people around you, a way to help them or do something for them that you wish you had someone, I mean, for me personally, I don't know about you guys, but I wish I had someone at my level who was super happy to answer any question I had in a, like, reasonable format, right? Yeah, I mean, I have a whole company that I started, not because I need their money, because I don't, but because I wanted to give them the resources that I wish I had when I was first starting out. I don't want them to suffer like I suffered, right? I don't want to have to go through those hardships and those other things. And then we build a community around that, and it's awesome, right? Okay, so mastery makes you feel powerful, right? It makes your fans feel powerful too. So a motivation here of accomplishment and ownership, right? So if you have mastery, that means you have accomplishment, that means you have ownership, so you're taking a couple of those other ones and giving it to yourself. And when you are confident in what you can do, other people take notice, right? It matters. Like if I'm up here like shaking and shivering on the stage and too afraid to talk to you about all this stuff, you might not take me as seriously, but now I'm practiced. I've gotten over a lot of my social anxiety for standing in front of people and talking, and I can talk at a nice, moderated, even level pace, right? And that can give you more confidence in what I'm saying. Isn't that crazy? Like, that it's such a minor thing that other people notice. And I'm pointing those out on myself to call attention to it, because when you know where it's coming from, it means a lot to you, right? Or at least it does to me. Okay. So social media. Pick a platform or three. Go small. Get really good at what you're doing. There's everything under the sun out there that you could be advertising on. What is successful in your own genre? What is successful for you? What do you have the time to do? Because we all have 24 hours in a day, right? And if we are spending them on this over here and that over there and this over there, our main focus of writing, which content generation is what earns us money, that goes by the wayside far too often. Oh, okay, I bolded some of these. Hang on. There we go. All right. So the question then can become, when do I actually work? Right? Because I kind of jumped into this one a little bit ahead of time, sorry. So the short answer is after you know what your social media should look like. Okay? So last year I did a presentation on branding. And I didn't do that this year because I like to bring fresh content every year that I'm here. But they keep giving me this stage, which I'm really happy about. So hopefully you'll tell your friends and, give them have that social influence. Be like, hey man, look, I brought 20 people in. And I'll be like, yeah, you did. Come on, let's go get lunch. Maybe, right? It'd be fun. So short answer, like if you know what you are doing, if I know that I'm going to have my social media manager is not any one person, right? So just so you know, like, for me, my social media manager is Mountaindale Man, right? So, because Mountaindale Press, we have Mountaindale Man. He's a big lumberjack. He fights bears and rubs oil on chest, and this is how he talks to fans. It's great, right? And we've had males, we've had females, we've had like all sorts of people that are coming through, and that is our social media manager, so that they don't have this mix-up of this person over here is talking to me today, and this person over here tomorrow. And so then, they don't know who they're talking to. In this case, they don't know who they're talking to, but it's always the same person. Mountaindale Man. And Mountaindale Man is an amalgamation of what I want my company values to look like. Fun and exciting and something strange, a little bit out of the usual, with an actual SOP on how to respond. And if we have a nice person coming in, somewhat hostile, very hostile, so on and so forth. If they want this sort of content, here's the responses that we do in this format, right? A nice, clean-cut way to say this is how this person who is interacting as this person should react in every situation. When I know what I want that to look like, I can hire someone else to do the job, and I did. But only you know how you want your fans to see you. I want people to see me as the fun, casual, coffee-loving, pun-loving, pun barrage sort of guy, with the dad jokes out the rear, and who doesn't swear, right? And is super super clean and humorous. That's what I want, because that gets me access to places that I otherwise wouldn't have access to. School systems, institutions. I'm sending boxes of books to juvenile detention centers because they asked for it. So I'm going to do that, right? And how do we make generational readers where we can earn income off of people not just at our age level or a certain age level, but then for years and decades, right? That is something to think on, right? So all of this must be very intentional. So only you know how you want your fans to see you. So once you get your social media presence set, once you have a solid foundation, you can hand that off to someone else and focus on what is actually earning you money, content generation, right? So the motivation here, right, the motivation of all of this is epic meaning, social influence, right? So say I have a fan that is really good at what they do. They go out there and say, hey, I love Dakota Krout. He's so funny. He makes me happy. And I really do. He makes me so happy, and I want all of you to read his stuff, right? And I see that over and over, and it's the same person every time. He's a top fan. He's doing this, he's doing that, and he's just doing all this without me asking. So that's a super fan, right? They're going out there and doing all this stuff for me on my behalf. Well, I'm gonna call that guy out. I'm gonna be like, hey man, do you want to do what you're doing, but with just a couple of constraints and with money? Because I will pay you to do what you do, so I don't have to do it. Sound good? And the answer so far has been yes. So that's a row of my employees over there. So they're I don't think they were expecting me to call them out. This is audience participation, you in the red shirt. So I'm gonna just kidding. As much as you want to be invested in this, I want to be invested in it with you. So again, if you have questions, bring them on. So epic meaning. If you give them the chance to rise above, not only are you giving them this sense of empowerment, they are the chosen fan that you have reached out to, and they get to have a closer relationship with who they see as a public figure or as a celebrity or however they see you. If you are giving them that epic meaning, it matters so much to them, and then it gives them social influence over their peers. That's a big deal. A question. Thank you. What's up? Can we turn the microphones on? AV team? Hello? Nothing? Okay. You can just come closer and I'll repeat it. Come on. All the way up. I'm half deaf. Mm-hmm. Sure. Mm-hmm. Of course. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so the question is, when you hire someone, how do you get it to be authentic because you want to be the one who is responding to your fans, right? Yeah, okay, so first off, my name is not Mountaindale Man, right? So they know it's not me, right? But they're responding on my behalf. Second off, when I do have someone respond for me in emails and something like that, I have a template of things of how they should be acting, how they should be reacting, what I would say in that situation. And typically, if it's something completely new, the question will come to me, and I'll answer it. But very rarely is it something new at this point, right? And so the fact of the matter is, you should only do what only you can do, right? So there's a reason I'm putting out 8,000 words a day between 8 a.m. and noon, right? It's because I am writing, right? If I'm going on and doing social media, if I'm going on and answering emails, if I'm doing all these other things that are taking away my time and pulling me in so many directions other than content generation, I am not serving my fans in the way that they need to be served, even if they might want, like this one person over here might want a deeper description of my system or whatever else, have a 3-hour conversation with me. Unfortunately, as we get more fans, that becomes less feasible, right? So if I don't have someone doing the other things that I could do, but it doesn't need to be me, I'm losing my time and using it in a less efficient way, right? We have to be good shepherds of our time. And if we're not, our time will scatter. We've all felt that, right? We have all felt pulled in many ways, and we have all wanted to maintain complete control, right? This is an indie conference, right? Come on, right? Like, there's a reason that we're doing it this way instead of sitting for 10 years and not publishing, hoping against hope that someone will notice us, right? It's because we want agency over what we do. That tends to make us a bit more micromanagey than otherwise we would be. But you gotta let some things go. You must, to be success, right? To have success, to serve your fans, that's what you must do. Any other questions, please bring them on. Otherwise, I'm just gonna keep going here. So, epic, meaning, and social influence. That is what you are giving a fan when you pull them out of a crowd, give them a job, and tell them that what they are doing is unique and special. What's up, my friend?
Is this working yet? Okay.
Oh, hey.
So, let's say you do get a superfan who is running out there and promoting your stuff, being great, and you're trying to do what you can, give back, elevate them, and then you do reach that point where you can't give the level that they are hoping.
Okay.
So initially, trying to be very generous, be like, yes, absolutely, I want to give you feedback on your book, send me what you got, and then you get to the point where it's like, I can't do that level of investment anymore. Sure. How do you manage that?
Okay, so you're saying like, okay, so I think we have different terms here. So a superfan is someone who's going out and promoting your work to other people, in my mind, right?
Yes.
So you're saying, how do you have someone who is a fan of yours who sends in their own stuff and wants feedback? Or?
No, you have that fan,
okay,
and you have been doing something to try and acknowledge that,
right?
And sort of what you were talking about of just raising them up and saying, hey, people go check out this stuff. They're still doing that, but as you mentioned, as your fan base grows, you don't have the time to
sure.
recognize or provide the service that you were as an acknowledgement anymore. Like, how do you maintain that without losing that super fan?
That comes from hiring someone to do it for you, right? So, I mean, seriously, it does, because, I mean, you typically don't see Brandon Sanderson actively, like, on camera going and being the one to respond to his stuff, but it's still Brandon Sanderson responding, right? I mean, that's one of those things that everyone expects and everyone kind of knows that that's the way things will eventually have to go. But what you can do is you can tailor it to have the reader delight, right? So where they're coming in and they feel acknowledged, they feel like what they're doing is unique. And superfans especially, when they're going out and doing that stuff, man, if you, like, you don't have to do much, right? There's nothing that's saying you must hire them on 40 hours a week, you know, full-time, whatever else. It could be as simple as just be like, hey man, could I get on like a Discord call or a Zoom call with you just so I can express to you how cool like this is? Or it could just be like, hey, thank you so much to like this guy over here, top fans who are doing so much for me. I really appreciate it, and more than you know, right? And what I would say is, hey, can you make that post for me? Cool, thanks. Right? I mean, too easy, right? So a lot of it is getting to the point where you know what you are doing so that you can comfortably hand it to someone else with the trust, with the knowledge that they're going to treat it the way it should be treated, right? So training is key in this situation, right? So, yeah, cool. Okay. Here we go. Next one. How I use social media. I tend to jump forward in slides because I get so excited and there's this like timer that's counting down. And I'm like, oh my God, it's still green. I'm okay. So how I use my social media is also known as little as possible, right? I go out there, and the way I get feedback about my genre is I read other authors in my genre, and I see what they're doing, and I see what's successful, and I try to mold my stuff to better hit the center of the genre at any given time. That doesn't mean I'm going to completely change how I write or my style or anything else, because what's working for me is working for me. But I might like incorporate elements of what they're doing, and maybe even throw like an Easter egg in there. Could be fun. So I have currently 2 social media managers that respond from my FAQ, right, as well as they can, or I get to it once a week, and that can be, that's a little generous to say I get to it once a week. But if they have questions that have never come in before, or if it's just like this multi-paragraph thing that comes in, usually that's left for me to handle. And when it's one of those ones that's like 4 pages, usually the answer is, hey man, thank you so much for being such a great fan. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time to look over all of this, but clearly you care about it, so I hope to hear from you more in the future, right? But you just kind of like a soft pedal. But Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, etc., all of these things, I supply answers to my social media manager only. Like I don't touch those. Like I'll go on Facebook, I'll go on Patreon is the next one. So, hang on, do these get bolded? Ha, yes they do. Okay, so Patreon though. Patreon is the one that's all me all the time. I answer all the questions on there, I answer all of that stuff. Because that's a premium audience who is paying to be there, right? That means as rapidly as I can, I'm going to get them the answers. I'm going to take their feedback. They're always going to have my attention first because they are paying for that service, right? So that's just how I handle that. Facebook, I have other people manage most of the time, but I answer questions. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, I just might put content up on there, but usually it's like, hey, it's TikTok. Make a quick video, post it. Cool? Cool. All right. And everyone's happy. All right, so how do we use this to better our connection? This is called the minion model, right? So the minion model is fan, superfan, minion, super minion, right? So fans are amazing. We all know this. And the only reason that what we are doing can be a career, right? So when they're a fan, they get ownership. They get the book, they have a great time. They own the fact that they had a good time, right? That's theirs. We supplied it, they own it. Super fans are people that like the book so much that they go out, get other people to read your books, right? And then what they get out of that is social influence, right? So they have the ownership that they got as a fan. Now they have the social influence of being able to come back to you and being like, hey, look, man, I tell this to everyone I know, and I can account for like hundreds of people coming in. I post this on over here. I tell everyone I know to come and read your stuff, and they do. And then that's a super fan. It's super cool, right? So and it can be cool to be like, hey, I was reading this before it was popular. Like, I'm sure all of us have fans that we know as like the original fans who have been around forever, and they're super cool, and we all know that they're super cool, right? Those are the people I'm talking about, like, who have been around forever, go out there and like prolethicize for you, right? They're like, go and read the Dakota book. They're wonderful. It's amazing stuff. I'm like, yeah, do it. Okay. So from there, we go to the minions, right? So here's where you really, really, really find the people that you can hire and like do extremely well with, right? So minions are people that tend to go out and use their talents on your behalf without ever needing to be asked, right? So these are all examples of stuff that have happened, right? So I've had fans go out and start a wiki. I actually have like 3 competing wikis where they're like fighting with each other, and they're trying to like poach each other's members to write in their wiki. And it's really funny to me because I'm like, I'm not touching that. They're like, Dakota, which one do you endorse? I'm like, oh, you're all so wonderful. Just keep it up, yeah. But like, I've had people go out and start a Discord, and now we have thousands and thousands of members of Discord, and I don't own the Discord, right? So like, I do the boosting on it, but I don't like own it. So I'm actually a mod, but I'm the lowest level of mod where I can't even like tell the other mods that they're not mods anymore. So it's like whatever. But that's fine because it's all fan run, it's all fan based, and then I just get to help shape the culture, which is really cool. Create gear, write fan fiction. I found several of my authors just because they're like, hey, I'm writing this. I'm like, dang, that's good. Yeah, you are good. All right, come on in, man. And then from minions, these people that show us that they have talents, that show us that they're going to do stuff for us no matter what, turn into super minions. And super minions are the people that are using those talents that we think are really cool that we can hire, right? So that gives them that epic meaning, right? They were doing something greater than themselves, and you have chosen them by recognizing, like you recognize them, which means you are choosing them out of the pool of however many fans you have, right? And I want you all to know, you don't need, again, this is not about taking on someone full time. I can tell you, if I had, like, my social media manager started out 1 hour a day, 4 days a week, and was super effective, you know, like, I mean, use thunder on a bird, right? Come on, Pokemon reference there, sorry. But super duper effective, and so we were able to give them more responsibility and more money and more time because they were so effective, right? And so then we were able to open up other social media platforms and other things like that, make SOPs, know what we're doing, and it's great. And most of my employees, I would say all of them, started as fans. I would say all of them, but I guess I can't really count narrators as employees. They're contractors, and they do their own thing. But a whole bunch of our authors, a whole bunch of our support staff, whatever else, started as fans, and that was awesome because I knew that they loved what they were doing before I ever got to the interview process. Okay. So what not to do, right? Because I find that sometimes it's really important to point this out. Because like you'll be like, hey, do this, and they're like, great, I'm going to go and jump in the pit. You didn't tell me not to, right? And I'm like, oh, no, not that. So black hat motivators, right? So they make for a bad experience over time. Unpredictability is a huge one. Let's say you don't announce your release dates to your fans. Let's say you announce, okay, sorry, mixed that one up. Let's say you announce to your fans that you're going to put out a book at this time, and then you don't. And you just kind of like kick that back 6 months or whatever else. And then like they might stick around or they might be really upset, and then they get to it and you kick it back, whatever, and now it's unpredictable. Don't put a release date until you're sure it's going to happen. It's like one of the fastest way I've ever seen to burn your audience just bad. Yeah, so try not to. The unpredictability is bad. Similarly, if you just if you're like, hey guys, I finished a book, it's over here on the table, pick it up. They're like, what? There was no warning, there was no notification that this book was coming, there's no hype, there's nothing exciting. And then you as the author is like, oh, why is I'm like not ranking, what's happening? Well, that was an unpredictable release. You know, give yourself a little bit of lead time, at least a little bit, right? Tell your people it's coming. Scarcity, right? A collector's item is cool, but like a new collector's item every week is kind of annoying. Like if they're like, oh, limited edition this one has like tinsel on it, and it's like, oh, great, cool. So if you are taking all of this stuff, if you're being unpredictable, if you're trying to create false scarcity, where you're like, hey, this is a limited sale item, and then you have it up there for 3 years, and everyone who wants one can have one. That's not going to work, right? Over time, people realize that, and they just stop coming back. Same thing with avoidance, right? Oh, actually, I just did avoidance, sorry. Yeah, so available for a limited time, but then doesn't ever come out. Give hard numbers, right? I'm gonna run a Kickstarter with 1,000 books, right? 1,000 total books. Please, guys, come in and buy it. And that's what I'm gonna tell my fans. Like, 2 weeks from now, you can come in and get this. There's 1,000 total. It will never be printed like this again. Done, right? And I'm sure that that's going to have a really big impact because people will want that. Now, a big thing about black hat motivators is trust is earned when action meets words. And so if you don't have trust, if you don't have the trust of your fans, you're not going to have a fan base for any length of time. Okay. So throwing down a challenge. This is kind of a cool motivator where like you can go out there and be like, hey guys, look, you should do this, and if you can't do it, like that's okay, right? But here's my challenge to authors, right? So you as an author find your success in one way, right? Producing content. You hear this, like these guys have heard this so many times from me, like almost every presentation has something to this effect. Producing content is what makes us money, right? Selling the content obviously is what makes us money, yes, semantics, but actually producing content earns us money, So if you want to find meaning in what you do as an author, if you want to feel empowered, accomplished, have social influence, if you want to be the person up here giving this sort of talk and hoping against hope that people will just stand up and ask questions, then like, if you want that for you, if you want to be someone who is highlighted and can't see the crowd because of the lights, right, then this is what you need to do. You need to grind on what you're doing and get stuff out there and run things effectively and efficiently. You need to find people who want to be a part of what you're doing and let them, right? I like to tell people, if you're wondering, where should I put my advertising dollars? I like to say, invest in people, right? Give someone else the opportunity to express how much they love you, right? We all know that it can be very difficult to talk yourself up. If someone's like, what do you do? You're like, oh, I write books, it's great. It's fun, I have a whole career on it. And they're like, oh, cool, I've always wanted to write a book. And then they just kind of move on, right? We've all had that experience. But then if you get like a fan with you who like loves your stuff, they're like, what do you do? And they're like, sir, don't talk to that man, thank you. All right, no, I'm just kidding. Oh, where's Michael Head? Yeah. No, so it's one of those things where, you have to get these things for yourself. If you want that sort of stuff for yourself, you got to get out there and you got to write the books. You got to sell the books, and that means you had to hit the publish button. So do it. Like, find that success and come up here and tell me, Dakota, you had this tiny fraction of a bearing on my success, so thank you, right? That'd be so cool to me, so please do. All right, so please ask questions. This is the end of the slides. We have about 4 minutes. So if you have questions, please definitely come up, ask them. Seriously, I love questions. It's great. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
At what point in your career did you feel like starting a Patreon was worth the return on investment?
Immediately.
Okay.
So I would say even before you publish your first stuff, sometimes it's useful. Just be like, hey, look, I am wanting to do, the books are going to come out, and you can help shape what is going to come out. Come and do it. Like, you can keep the tiers low cost. You can do all sorts of things with that. But if people want to support you, let them. Right? That's one of the hardest things for a lot of us to do, is because we are so very focused on our own success and our own ambition, and sometimes it can be confusing to us that other people want to support us for no reason other than to support us. So I say start it right away. If nothing else, you're grandfathered in when they change the terms again, right?
Right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So one of the strategies that I've been told to use is when you're putting out books in a series, you put your pre-order out as soon as possible.
I'm sorry, put what out as soon as possible?
Your pre-order and your release date
Okay.
as soon as possible. But the way that, and to avoid getting your pre-order rights taken away, you put it out way in advance and then, put in the back of the book coming sooner, but this is what Amazon says is the pre-order date. Even if I move it back, like to an actual, sooner date, I'm still getting criticism from readers.
Sure.
I can't believe the next book's not coming out for a year, et cetera. How do you manage those expectations and communicating more clearly with readers? No, it's not going to be this far. Trust me.
Sure. So I'm not a fan of long pre-orders, right? So what I like to do instead is I like to do rapid release, right? So whenever I'm going to start a new series, I'm going to have 3 books at a minimum ready in that series, right? And that is hard. It's hard to write those books and have them ready to go and do all the stuff with, but it's going to help your marketing, right? Mm-hmm. The best success that we have been able to find is a 3-book rapid release schedule with simultaneous audiobook release, right? And that has always been a very effective tool that we've had in our toolbox. And when we use that, it is always more effective. And we've tried with it. We've tried audio first. We've tried ebook first. I have data 6 years of 150 audio titles, and 200, 180 ebooks, where this is the most effective thing to do, right? So what I would say is, instead of having those pre-orders so far out, or if you're going to have those so far out, be like, hey, look, I'm going to pull this forward, book's out, and they're like, where's the next book? And you're like, guess what, sucker? It's right here. It's coming in. It's coming in 30 days, so that I get on that Amazon algorithm to kick me up higher in the ranks. Yeah. And then they're like, oh wow, 2 books. Well, what about the next one? And you're like, guess what? Right. And so that's what I've always found to be an effective thing here. And I'm sorry, I have 30 seconds, so if I can get the next question really, really fast.
Okay, very fast. And I know there's a panel on Patreon, which I'm going to go back and watch because I was somewhere else. But do you have any quick strategies for how to get people to actually support you on Patreon? Because I found that very difficult, even though I do have a few super fans.
Sure.
They still won't move over there.
So that's a question that is varied, right? So my recommendation is to have links to your Patreon in everything. So the back of your book, in the on your pages, be like, hey, look, if you want to support me more, don't make it a club where you're gonna hit people with hey, I need this to continue working as an author. I need you to come and do this. But if you make it a club where it's hey guys, if you want something really cool, come over here, right? So club, not club, right? That's kind of my quick 30-second brief on that. And unfortunately, we are out of time. I would love, love, love to answer any more questions you have. Please find me if you'd like to. And yeah, thank you all.